Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Alopecia Angel podcast. Today, we are talking about thinning hair. And I know this is a big topic because a lot of people out there have thin hair. And you're probably wondering, what can I do with my thin hair? Can I help it? Can I regrow more hair? What can I do about my thinning hair? So, you see me here with lots of hair, right? Pretty thick. Yes, some grays. Yes, potentially a little bit of different colors and contrast, but I have thin hair. I've always had thin hair. And you're probably not believing me, but I'm telling you, I have thin hair. I've always had it. But what I can tell you is that you can always have more of it, more thin hair. So thin, so thick that your ponytail can be really thick. So if you're looking for a thicker pony, if you're looking for more hair, the Hair and Heal program is for you. And it's for you even if you don't necessarily have hair loss. One thing that's always brought my own situation to heart in all of this is that before my actually alopecia areata bout with that in my 30s, I always had thin hair. It could always be thicker like it is now, more abundant, just voluminous and really thick and beautiful, but it's still a lot, but it's still thin. But when thin hair thins out, this is actually really scary. So this is actually where people with coarse hair, with thicker hair in general, have an advantage over people with thin hair. Because if you have thin hair to begin with, your main option, your main focus should be to increase the amount of the thinning hair. Because what's going to happen is that this is why maybe your scalp starts to show. This is why maybe the sides start to show. This is how your ponytail becomes really thin. I don't wear ponytails. I wear claw clips. Even in the claw clip, I can tell when my hair is on the thinner side versus a more voluminous, thicker side. And so there are ways to counteract these two. There are ways to help improve. And so the thing is, this too requires an evaluation. There is no product here. There is no gimmicks. There is no shampoo I'm going to recommend or some sort of serum or multivitamin. This isn't it. We need to look at the whole person because, again, as I look back at my own hair loss situation before alopecia areata, I had times in my 20s where my hair was really thin, straggly thin. And it could have been a couple of reasons. Maybe over processing, right? Maybe it could have been maybe some of those hair products that do cause hair loss. So for example, I have a free PDF on my website that tells you exactly all the hair products that cause hair loss, either directly or indirectly, or that they've been in lawsuits for. And so this is also something to understand because probably many times you look underneath the cabinet there in the bathroom and you don't realize that a lot of these products do cause not just hair loss, but cancer and a bunch of other things. And so this was one of the shocking truths that I had to go through when I found out my favorite mousse of over almost 15, 20 years was discontinued because they found out it caused cancer. It's one of those things that we don't know until years, even decades later. And a lot of times things are hidden. Things are hidden. They're settled out of court so that none of this information that consumers need to know are going to be knowing about, hearing about. And so that's the situation that we're in. So thinning hair, yes, you can help it. There are different types of tips and tricks that I'd like to help you now with and share with. So for example, with thinning hair, I like to say that it's a little bit more on the delicate side. My hair in particular, because it is thin, because it's curls, and because I do highlight, it already gives it a disadvantage, meaning there's more processing. So the more processing you do, the more you're antagonizing it. So if you can, process less. I know this is hard with some people who don't want to embrace grays. I hear you. I don't want to embrace them either. But at the same time, I'm also mindful of how often I process, whereas before when I didn't have grays, I would process all the time. And so this is also where you can see breakage. So for example, I've had stylists sometimes where they're fresh out of cosmetology school and they don't understand that when you're doing the highlights, you should just do the foils up to where you're trying to cover, not all the way down the line. And so when you continue to put bleach essentially on top of the same hair every time, you're losing integrity, which means at some point it starts to break, which means that the breakage just happens. And so this is very common with people who color their hair. And it also thins it out because maybe you won't see that breakage, and sometimes the clumps. It's not necessarily coming from the scalp, it's coming from the mid part. And potentially, because if you think about it, in my case with the highlights, you're doing them from here, from the root, and you should only do them about an inch in or half an inch or however that part line is. But then if you keep on coloring all the way down with that same bleach, every time you have a highlighting session or a color session, more highlights versus just all over color, then that breakage is more possible. Another way for you to have more breakage is to not get enough trims. And I say this because you need to trim your hair if you want long hair growth. So my goal right now is to have hair be all the way down my waist or like mid back. That's what I'm looking for, all the way down my mid back. But that takes time, especially when you have curly hair. I don't have straight hair, but I saw this lady in the gym and she had amazing, beautiful hair. And I commented on her hair and I told her how gorgeous it was. And she told me it took her 7 years to grow it all the way down. And granted, it went all the way down to her glutes, all the way down to her rear end. And it was just long and straight and blonde, very beautiful hair. But she told me it took 7 years. So I understand growing all the way down will take time, but that's the goal I have for myself at the moment. What to do? Sometimes I trim my hair at home and I don't trim with, let's say, a stylist or my hair cutter who does and cuts my hair, because really the hair cutter essentially shapes my hair. And yes, she trims, but she just shapes it to make sure that the curls are doing what they need to do, where they need to go, and everything is looking good instead of me looking like a poodle. That's really her job. For those of you who have the need to, let's say, with straight hair, if you can't give yourself a few little trims here and there, then get your hair cut, but then maybe expand. Instead of every 2 months or 3 months, maybe expand every 4 months. And then what you can also do is look with a light, like in really bright light, see if you have any split ends and start cutting those ever so slightly and get some professional scissors. I got my professional scissors at a beauty store. This store gave me the scissors. And so now if I have any flyaways or even for my son, then I just start snipping and seeing what needs to be done. Because sometimes hair can grow more in some areas and in other areas less. And so that's also something that I've noticed throughout the years too, is that sometimes the hair in the back grows a lot faster than the hair maybe up front, especially if at some point I had bangs, which I did, or cut it short. Like this one's a lot shorter and not as long as everything else in the back. And so for it to catch up, it takes a little bit of time. But this too also needs small, minute trims. And so as you keep trimming, then your hair will want to grow longer. But the integrity of the hair needs to be there. This is for all different types of hair. So if you see that thinning, that breakage, then you need to pause and see what's happening. Is it my diet and lifestyle? Is it the medications that I'm taking? I have a PDF, free PDF on my website that you can see all the medications that have a direct link to hair loss. Is it something else? Maybe is it another blind spot? Or is it that the integrity of the hair, I've colored too much, I've highlighted too much, or the lady or the man who does my hair isn't doing things correctly? I can't tell you how many times I've gone somewhere, and even though they have their license, they've gone to cosmetology school, they've royally messed up my hair with color and cut. And so now I'm very particular with who touches my hair and who doesn't. Personally, I like somebody with at least 15 years of experience, personally, because somebody with 10 years or less doesn't know all the nuances of curly hair, first and foremost, especially where, for example, where I live, everyone has straight hair. No one has curly hair. So that's first and foremost. The second of it is that I do have thin hair and it does give you results quickly. For example, if you put on bleach, it highlights and it produces the color that you're looking for in less time. And so this is also some of the mistakes that new stylists have done to me while, let's say, living abroad in Japan or living abroad in the Netherlands or in anywhere else, where it takes a minute, a couple sessions with that same stylist for them to understand your hair, your texture, how it develops, the sensitivity to your scalp, all the things. Because just with one session, it's not enough. It takes either a lot of experience, hence the 15 years or more. But we can control the breakage. We can promote. This is the biggest part. For those of you with thin hair or thinning hair who want more thicker hair, we can promote thicker hair. We can promote more hair growth. And so this is the key. Hair growth is available to you anytime. It really is. Just like the gym. It's available to anybody anytime. You just need to take the steps in order to see that thicker hair. But I'm here to tell you and show you that I have thin hair. I've always had thin hair. I have a lot of it though. And I do notice when it's thicker and when it's thinner. During my time with alopecia, I lost over 50% of my hair. It was very thin. The claw was actually probably bigger than the actual amount of my hair. Yes, I had the bald spots and patches that all connected. Yes, I was losing eyelashes and forehead. Yes, I was losing eyebrows as well. And this was all scary. And I think losing your hair in general, anyone, male, female, child, doesn't matter. It's all scary and unsettling. But I will say, as someone with thin hair, you notice the thinning real quick. For example, I have a client, the yoga instructor, Vicky. She was on my podcast a couple months ago, and she's always had very large, thick hair. And so the thing is, it's like when you have a lot of hair, a lot of thick hair, you can get away with the thinning. You can get away with the shedding because you still look normal. But for somebody with thin hair, you notice it quickly, especially when it's wet. You start to look like a wet rat. You really do. And so this is my key. First, you need to understand and believe that you can have more hair. Yes, it'll always be thin, but you can have more of it. Just like I've just showed you, you can always have more, especially for those of you watching on YouTube. You can always have more hair. You can have thicker hair where it's literally really thick. And again, I'm in my mid 40s. Anyone can do this, whether you're 85, 45, 25, or 5. Anyone can do this. And it's really about personalizing the diet and lifestyle. No one pill, no one shampoo is going to get you to those results. So those are my tips for thinning hair. Get your trims. Make sure you're working with people who have good experience, not necessarily fresh out of beauty school, and really who know, especially if you color and process. There's been a lot of mishaps at the beauty salon that I've experienced myself, and I'm sure you have too, whether they burned your scalp, whether your hair fell out. I actually have somebody who contacted me here recently. She tried to dye her own hair. She followed the instructions that were given to her, and all of a sudden, half her hair came out. And sometimes it's also too much processing too soon. And so this is why you also want to be mindful of how much, because those are chemicals and there's all toxins. Bleach is a toxin and it's a chemical. And so is the black dye, the pink dye, and brunette, and any other color that you'd like to add to your hair, is that you can't process and process. And sometimes you process so much and your hair just can't withstand it. And so this is too something to keep in mind, because you can end up losing more than half your hair. Like this lady, she lost 60 to 75% of her hair just right there as she was washing out the dye. This too, I talk about this in another podcast, that sometimes the dyes from the salon and from the drugstore are very different. That chemical interaction is like a science project, and guess who loses here? You do, and you lose the hair along with it, because the store-bought dyes don't talk to the salon professional dyes at the same time. The chemicals are different. And so even though it's black color and black color, blonde and blonde, or what have you, it's still not the same apples to apples. Therefore, it creates this chemical interaction that does lots of harm for you. And maybe you've done the same science project at your house with cleaning agents or cleaning ingredients, whether it's window cleaner or toilet cleaner, and you see a little bit here and here with 3 different bottles, you mix them all together, and then it just creates this havoc and a very strong smell, potentially. Same thing. We need to be very cautious of how we're mixing our colors, who we're going to for our coloring. But at the end of it, thin hair can always improve. Don't think it can't. Even if you were born with it like me, you can always improve it. You can always have more of it. Just like health, just like hair, just like wealth, just like anything else, you can have more of it. So this is where that Hair and Heal program comes in. We evaluate you, there's personalization. We look at anywhere where potentially there's blind spots, there's areas that are hindering you, holding you back, so that you can have high performance hair growth in less than 8 weeks. Thank you so much. I invite you to look at the Alopecia Angel website so you can see our free training, so you can see our free PDFs, and then you can also grab a consultation with me at any point. I'm happy to hear from you and help you get on the path to high performance hair growth today. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.